Hello, buongiorno. I'm Don James Morrow, here with Rita Knuckles Panahy and Rowan Neckties Dean. And I've got a message from Joey Brainfades Biden for all the Americans out there watching outside us. Nice country you got there. Be ashamed if something were to happen to it. Now, what am I talking about? And why am I doing a bad Don Corleone impression? Well, because it's about time we talked about the Democrats' mafia standover tactics when it comes to winning November's increasingly tight election. Exhibit A. The other day, Biden's camp tweeted, because you know it's not him actually tweeting. Old Joe's got the brain power of a kitchen sponge after a heavy load of dishes. Anyway, he tweeted, "Does anyone believe there will be less violence in America if Donald Trump is reelected?" Sorry, Joe, are you saying that if Donald Trump is reelected, the violence, the so-called protests, will get worse? Sounds an awful lot like a threat to me. Could you imagine the outcry if Donald Trump said, "Hey, if I don't get reelected, right-wingers will turn violent and cause mayhem on the streets"? Of course not. It would never happen. For one thing, Republicans have jobs and businesses they are trying to keep open in the face of the left's beloved coronavirus closures. But no, instead, major media outlets like the Washington Post have backed in this idea that unless Joe Biden wins and wins big and convincingly, there will be hell to pay in the courts and on the streets. Georgetown law professor Rosa Brooks from something called the Transition Integrity Project wrote in a heavily publicized article in that paper, quote, "A landslide for Joe Biden in their model resulted in a relatively orderly transfer of power. Every other scenario we looked at involved street-level violence and political crisis." You got that? Do like you're told, and there won't be any trouble. And just to make sure the message is clear, we're already seeing it foreshadowed by the Antifa and BLM thugs who, far from being soy boy tofu-infused social justice warriors, are actually violent, felonious cretins with a taste for mayhem, and worse. Now, you probably heard about the case of the 3 protesters who were shot in Kenosha, Wisconsin a couple of weeks ago. The media tried to make them out as martyrs, and the young man who shot them as some sort of alt-right lunatic. But what they didn't tell you is that all 3 of the men who were shot, 2 fatally, they were also convicted felons. Take Anthony Huber, who was shot dead by Kyle Rittenhouse in the melee when he went after him and tried to attack him with a skateboard. Huber's girlfriend called him heroic, but in fact, he was a creep of the highest order, with a number of charges and convictions for domestic violence, including strangulation and suffocation, false imprisonment, and use of a dangerous weapon. Lovely stuff. Even worse, one of the others shot by Rittenhouse, Joseph Rosenbaum, was actually a child rapist who had been convicted of a number of truly horrific sexual crimes against children aged between just 9 and 11 in Arizona. But you won't hear about that on CNN or the ABC, will you? Oh, and Michael Forrest Reinhold, who is thought to have shot and killed Trump supporter Aaron Danielson as he took part in a pro-police convoy in Portland last week. He was killed in a confrontation with federal agents. But not only had he given an interview with Vice magazine after the shooting in which he said, "I did not hit anyone innocent," but the self-described snowboarding instructor had also been arrested in June after a bizarre incident that saw him drag racing his 17-year-old son down an Oregon highway at speeds of up to 180 kilometers an hour, and which saw cops find drugs and an unlicensed Glock pistol in his car. The one glimmer of humor in all of this is that having been set on their way, not even on the wokest of woke politicians is safe. Across the country, as the violence escalates to the point where even the ultra-left mayors of St. Louis and Portland have been forced to move house because the mob has become so violent that in the case of Portland's mayor, they tried to burn down his apartment complex with the residents in it. The Democrats here are trying to play it both ways, of course. Say a few words denouncing the violence in general while threatening more if things don't go their way. It's an amazing endorsement of lawlessness from the left, which always loves to claim the legalistic high ground when it suits them. And it also, more sinisterly, suggests how far the left in the United States is willing to go to burn down their nation in their quest to retake power. For them, having violent felons as their unofficial shock troops on the streets is not a problem. It's actually a feature. As Don Corleone might say, capiche?
Great acting there, guys. I mean, De Niro must be, packing it in by now.
There's a bit more Marlon Brando.
Very, very good, James. Rita, you've got an exclusive from us on Black Lives Matter.
Well, exclusive for Australian television. I'm sure it's been seen elsewhere, but there was all sorts of unrest in New York. First, let's go to Rochester, where Black Lives Matter protesters, peaceful protesters as they are, just terrorised restaurant goers and trashed the joint. Have a look.
There's no need to run. Nobody's hurting them. We're shutting the party down. Nobody's going to touch you. We're shutting your party down. Calm down. Calm down.
So before that, there were people sitting outside enjoying a lovely meal, and they got up and ran for their lives. As you, I don't know if you heard on the video there, there's like, oh, don't be scared, no one's hurting you, as they're throwing chairs. I mean, for the love of God.
I tell you
and
what.
Also Manhattan had issues, James. They had a lot of damage. Again, violent protesters smashed up windows and smashed up property.
Unbelievable, unbelievable.
It's your New York, James. This is your town.
I tell you what, but it's not going to be the Democrats in New York if they keep this up. You know, Rochester is in solidly conservative upstate New York. That state could go to Trump if this sort of stuff keeps up, because people, ultimately, most people will go for the side that lets them eat dinner in peace.
Absolutely landslide for Trump, as I keep on saying,
Not
and will
in New
keep
York.
on saying.
Come on.
Keep
He's
on
not gonna
saying.
win New
You heard it.